What's going on, everyone? It is another episode of The Gold Standard. I am Jeremy Ralph, filling in for Joe Danneman this week, joined as always by Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie, what's going on, man?
How you doing, Jeremy?
Doing good, man. Whether you're watching or listening, glad you're with us right now. This is effectively the Joe Flacco episode. The Joe Flacco episode. I had to, I'm sorry. Let me start with this, Charlie. It gets wild with me, I apologize. What is Joe Flacco's immediate impact on this Bengals team?
I think it's the biggest thing is intangible. I think everyone kind of went into work yesterday with their heads a little higher and their shoulders a little straighter.
Yep.
And some of the skill position guys are probably thinking, I have a better chance to get the ball this week. Flacco has plenty of limitations and flaws, and we can talk about those in depth. But his biggest strength, something that consistently shows up film, is he is good at getting guys opportunities to create yards after the catch. So if I'm Jamar Chase or T. Higgins or Chase Brown or all the way down to Tanner Hudson, I feel like I've got a better chance to get the ball and do some stuff compared to the opportunities that Jake Browning was missing, and that's a good thing.
When we think about this Bengals season now, with Joe Flacco now a part of this team as the starting quarterback for right now, every time we talk to players and coaches, specifically coaches, I find this fascinating. I'm thinking of a guy like Troy Walters, wide receivers coach. They finish their statement by saying, when Joe comes back. This happens a lot. Joe Burrow, not Joe Flacco, right? It happens a lot. So to me, and I'm just reading the tea leaves here, it tells me they, in that locker room, believe at some point Joe Burrow comes back. Do you think that is a reasonable thought process? Is it realistic for this team?
I think the truth is, especially, and Troy Walters is a fantastic coach.
Yes.
But except for like maybe Mike Brown, Zach Taylor, and Joe Burrow, no one really has any sort of firm, who knows? Sure. You know what I mean?
Who knows? Yeah.
And ultimately, those guys are going to be the ones making the decision as well. I think there's going to be a lot of gray area, a lot of nuance. You hear hope. Yeah. I agree with that. But I also have heard nothing definitive. I haven't gotten the sense that these are people being like, I've been told Joe's coming back on December 21st. So right. I think there's some nuance in there. But as a whole, they're operating under the assumption that, Burrow could come back, and that's better than the alternative.
The reason why I asked that's kind of a leading question to set up my next question is we're talking about how many games might Joe Flacco have to start for this team, and what should it look like for the Bengals to stay afloat. Right now, this Bengals team through 5 games is 2-3, 3 straight losses. They've been terrible. It's why Joe Flacco's here. But let's just say that Joe Flacco has to start the next 8 games. The next 9 games. That would give Joe Burrow 3 or 4 games at the end of the season. Again, we'll see on that. What does Joe Flacco need to do, wins and losses, these next 8 or 9 games to keep this team in the conversation?
Well, I think here's a part of it too. Even best case scenario, let's say Burrow returns December 20th or whenever that game is. Yeah. That's going to be September Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
With no reps.
Right.
We've seen this. I'm not expecting Burrow to throw for 400 yards in his first game back, because that's not the information we have about what Burrow looks like when he's rusty. So I think they need to be pretty close to 500, at most 2 games under, ideally 1 game under or at 500, so it's not Burrow being thrown in, having to throw the ball 40 times a game to save the season.
Right.
I think Flacco's got to do some pretty solid work to keep the boat rowing here.
Okay, so let's do the math on the spot here. If we're just saying, because I'm going to play this out, because I think a lot of fans are wondering, what does that look like? If you're saying they need to be at 500, let's just throw it out, okay? Let's say 7-7 through 14 games, okay? Right now the Bengals are 2-3, so you're talking about them potentially going 5-4 with Joe Flacco.
I think that's what they need to do to feel confident when Burrow comes back. Now, if they're 5-4, that would be what, 4-5 or 3-6. Right. Like, you're in it kind of in the same way that the Bengals were still kicking and alive last year in December when they rattled off all those wins at the end. But then, I mean, as much as Burrow can do, that's asking him to do something extremely difficult, even by Burrow's standards. Coming back from this injury, probably not running and sprinting 1,000% miles per hour in terms of what he's capable of. So I think Flacco's probably got to be above 500 to keep the Bengals at a pace where they could realistically expect Burrow to come back and save the season.
We're living in hypotheticals. I've got a couple more on this, and then we're going to move back to some hard information on what this looks like for this team right now. Can Joe Flacco, regardless of what happens with Joe Burrow, can he keep them in the playoff hunt, playoff conversation, in an AFC and an AFC North that isn't that great right now?
I don't want to be the guy that says no. Like, that's sad. I think, again, like I said, there's more confidence for these guys walking into work today. And if that translates to a couple more plays for the defense, a little more oomph out of the offensive line, then sure, they have a chance. But because of the inaccuracy I see from Flacco down the field, the way he struggled against blitzes, the immobility, I just think there's a playbook to go after him with, combined with this just being a poor offensive line. So playoff expectations aren't even realistic to me yet at this point.
Not right now,
But, if we see it for a week or two and Joe Flacco can still play, I'm very open to changing my mind.
I appreciate that response is important because it's not you saying, oh, yeah, they can for sure. It's let's wait and see what happens in the next couple of weeks. I would just say, and I would agree with you, Charlie, being inside the locker room on Wednesday, which was day one for Joe Flacco in the building essentially, the energy was noticeable. The tone shift was noticeable. What it felt like to me was a bunch of guys basically saying in a matter of words, okay, this organization cares about winning. And it tells me also they weren't certain maybe a week or two ago that the organization was serious about winning this season. So to me, it felt like this is where I thought we were. And picking up Joe Flacco tells me where we are now. The number one guy I noticed that with was Chase Brown.
That's right.
His countenance was different, Charlie. I hate to say he was beaming, but he was right there on the edge for a guy who felt like he was ready to break in a lot of ways, to crash out, as the kids say, in a lot of ways in recent weeks, even on Sunday after a loss to the Lions. So let's shift the conversation that way. What does this look like for Chase Brown, having Joe Flacco now as his quarterback?
Well, the play that sticks with me the most from the Lions game was a run-pass option. The Bengals were pretty close to their own goal line, actually. And for whatever reason, Jake Browning reads the play, and he chucks a bad deep ball to T. Higgins that's incomplete by a mile. RPO, you can throw the go, or you can hand the ball off. And your reads and who lines up where shapes that. The math and the X's and O's show that he should have handed the ball off. What if he did hand the ball off? Chase Brown truly had an 80-yard touchdown. So much so.
Wow.
Brown knew it. In the moment, he's got his hands up as he breaks through that gap without the ball, being like, how do I not have the ball right now? And then as he breaks through the line of scrimmage and sees there is nobody near him, he claps his hands. Some of the most frustration I've ever seen from any Bengals player over the Zach Taylor era for not getting the ball was Chase Brown in that moment. And that's probably Brown thinking, man, this quarterback's not even running the run game right. And I think Flacco can do that. I think Flacco will hand the ball off next time. Chase Brown can get an 80-yard run, because if that run breaks off, imagine how much better Brown's statistics look and how much better he's feeling. So it's little easy stuff like that. The screen game, just simple little bubble screens to Jamar, checks at the line of scrimmage. Flacco can get the ball in these guys' hands.
When you're a kid and you cry so hard that you can't almost catch your breath on the back end? I haven't cried that hard in a long time, I guess. When I was a kid, I recall, you get in trouble and you're just so stirred with your emotions. You're not saying anything, but you just can't gather yourself. That, to me, is how it felt with Chase Brown after that loss to the Lions. He was visibly angry, visibly just bubbling underneath, but not saying the words that he wanted to say. That was tough to watch him go through that. It speaks to what you said. Jamar Chase was also trying to lead in the right manner, but yet on the field after a couple of plays, one of them where he's wide open on a deep ball, would have been a deep ball. You could see him kind of look at Zach, point back to Jake. It's tough. These guys are trying to lead the right way, but in the moment, feeling that frustration of that should have been a touchdown. Chase Brown felt the same thing. So I think that's why adding Joe Flacco helps bring some of that hope. Now, let's talk about the offensive line. And you have said all along, Charlie, the underlying issues, and we can see this, are not just play calls, quarterback, running back, whatever. Offensive line has kind of been the underlying issue to all of this. Practice window opens for Lucas Patrick. Does that provide some help? Some hope.
How far we've come.
I know, we're back
Lucas
around.
Patrick being the weak link. How are they going to win with Lucas
Patrick throwing his arms up in a preseason game like he doesn't want to block to being, now is he the savior? Because it's been so bad for guys like Dylan Fairchild that you wonder, and I know he's banged up, you wonder, can we circle back and see some hope?
It's really bad, man. I even want to highlight someone who I've got a ton of respect for, Orlando Brown. He's played at a Pro Bowl level throughout his career.
Right.
frankly, until this season. Zach Taylor said some of it was related to the cadence and kind of the quarterback's process in calling hike. So I guess that's another thing Joe Flacco can do that Jake Browning can't.
Yeah.
But you just see examples where Brown is dropping back and he just can't get to the edge. That's alarming, especially when Micah Parsons is coming up this week. Something either Brown's going to figure it out quickly or we need to have a longer conversation about him. And he's supposed to be your ace on the offensive line. And, left guard Dylan Fairchild, how I've described it is Dylan Fairchild will have, frankly, 4 terrible reps a game where it's like, oh my God, you are going to get the quarterback hurt. Mm-hmm. The rest, he holds up well enough. Jalen Rivers at right guard has been more like a drain where it's, consistently leaky, bad, snap to snap, not making up for it. Mm-hmm. Fewer of those, what the heck happened here reps, but so, you can make the case for Lucas Patrick replacing either Fairchild or Rivers. I'd give the edge to keeping Fairchild in if he's healthy and starting Patrick at right guard, but I don't have super high expectations for him either.
And then Dalton Reisner potentially circles back into the equation as well. We'll see about injuries. That's where we are. Okay, so let me ask you this. Who is the one offensive lineman this season that you feel like you can hang your hat on?
Well, Mims can play.
Okay.
But even Mims hasn't made the leap I expected. I expected, and Amarius expected, and the Bengals expected, Mims to become a guy who could lead you to win on snaps.
Yeah.
Like drawing up some designer run behind Mims and going through him, or basically getting the ball in his hands, let's say. And he's been solid, but it hasn't been flashy. It hasn't been spectacular, There hasn't been that wow Amarius Mims moment or game yet this season, which is what they all expected. So you can, there are a lot of teams who would die to have a right tackle like Amarius Mims, but he's not been one of the best right tackles in football. And you look at what's around him, and here you go.
And Bengals fans, rightfully so, are worried about how does a 40-year-old player like Joe Flacco, who can play a little bit like a statue, how does he survive with this offensive line? I haven't watched Joe Flacco closely the last 5 or 6 years. I've seen him play, obviously, considering the Bengals have played against him. He's one of those guys, as far as I understand, Charlie, who is just going to get that ball out of his hands no matter what. It might look like a bad percentage completion-wise post-game. The numbers might look terrible, but he's going to avoid the sack by launching it out of bounds. Isn't that his game? It's what he's going to do, basically?
There was even, in 2022, an old already, Joe Flacco played the Bengals, and they blitzed the heck out of him, and he's literally thrown the ball 30 yards downfield through the goalposts.
Yeah.
Because he's got no response for that.
Right.
Now, there's one thing I'm really concerned about is he showed great arm strength on that play. There was a play against the Lions, I believe just 2 or 3 weeks ago, where the Lions blitz, Flacco just getting rid of it, sails it out of bounds. The ball doesn't get out of bounds. Kirby Joseph camps under it in center field like he's getting a punt near the sideline. An interception so easy I could have gotten it. And I truly mean that. If Flacco does that, that's the kind of stuff that got him benched in Cleveland.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that makes you panic in Cincinnati. That can't happen. It just happened. So we'll see how he processes that.
The worst case scenario, I don't want to live in this world. We're not going to go here today, Bengals fans. The worst case scenario is in the first half of the game against Green Bay, you're wondering maybe Jake Browning needs a shot again. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, sure.
You want somehow, and I do believe, and I know this was Duke Tobin's call. I know he took it to Zach Taylor, and then it was done. I do believe that Joe Burrow had some input as well on this. I could be wrong about that. That's fine if I am. But it was who can come in here and run this offense and be a guy that can keep this team alive while I try to rehab and get back. I do believe Joe Burrow has a tremendous amount of respect for Joe Flacco. He's said that publicly already this season, so we'll see. This one is completely off the beaten path. I don't know if Charlie has an answer for this. I'm going to ask you, though, and just see what you say. Will Jermaine Burton play a meaningful snap for the Bengals again?
It's not looking good right. It's looking poor right now for that to happen. Looking very poor. The fact that they've been willing to put Mitch Tinsley back out there to return punts shows me a lot. I'm going to say yes because, this is still too negative. Let's see Flacco get a chance. I could still see development being the mindset in December. Maybe they give him one more shot. But it's been a negative regular season for Jermaine Burton, and obviously he hasn't played. So that shows you a lot right there. Mm-hmm. The fact that he's lost ground during the regular season, even though he hasn't played. So it's not looking good.
It is not looking good. It's not sounding good when you talk to guys inside the building right now. So we'll see on Jermaine Burton. I just feel like he's one of those guys that has kind of been removed from the entire equation. There's so much happening this season that you just start to wonder, what about Jermaine Burton? And so I wanted to ask you that. Okay, a couple of final questions before we get to the Gold Rush right here in this segment. I want to ask about the defense. And again, when there's so much happening with the team and so much has gone wrong and terrible the last 3 weeks, sometimes it becomes cloudy trying to see clearly what is happening. So one good thing, one bad thing on the defense, maybe something that no one is noticing or not talking about enough. Let's start with the good. What do you notice that, if you can pull something out, that might be a good thing about this Bengals defense that you actually do like still?
You know what I really like? I like the fact that after week 2, Al Golden sat down, with the media, sat down with us for his, weekly little powwow. And he goes, they just allowed all these points to the Jaguars. He goes, our third down defense is a problem. That's on me. I'm going to fix it. And then in 2 of the next 3 weeks, the third down defense was absolutely terrific and smart and well designed and well executed. Now against Denver, it wasn't. But that was more Cam Taylor-Britt playing in his own head. That was more Logan Wilson being a step too slow.
Yeah.
You can go through the Marco Wilson not knowing what to do. I won't go through those plays. The design, the creativity, the nuance, the just overall stew that they've got going on third downs. I'm very encouraged by that. That's a great reflection on Al Golden. It's a good reflection on Demetrius Knight and Dax Hill as well.
And that's the thing. If they can be competitively in games, then what you're saying as a trend should show up in big spots when they need it the most. Okay, let's flip it the other way. What is something bad about this defense that's maybe not being talked about enough in these blowout losses?
Well, the tackling was still a concern over the last couple weeks, and while that was something that started the season strong and will have highs and lows, it's something you would rather just be consistent. The cornerback play, I think DJ Turner has had some nice moments on the outside, but the rockiness you're seeing from Cam Taylor-Britt.
Yep.
You've seen defensive ends drop back in coverage. They've got to figure out what they're going to do there. And then Geno Stone has had some real low moments on film as well. He's had 2 nice third down moments in particular that I could give him credit for, but both tackling and kind of getting uphill and getting upfield. And he hasn't even been tested deep yet. So I've got my eye on Geno Stone.
All right, it is time for the Gold Rush. Rapid fire questions for Charlie Goldsmith on the Gold Standard. We haven't talked any Reds. We haven't talked with you since the Reds season ended. So some rapid fire questions. We'll start with the Reds. A lot of fans are asking me after the season ended, Charlie, would you move Elly De La Cruz to the outfield?
$1 million
It's been
question.
a season-long question. I am aware of that. But in hindsight now, looking forward based on how rough this season was for Elly at short in a lot of ways, now is it time to start leaning that way?
It's a conversation, and I'll give you the public stance. We asked Nick Kroll pretty directly, and he said, he's our shortstop right now. It's a conversation. Let's just say that on my color-coded spreadsheet for off-season targets, I bolded some of the second base options on the table. That would kick McClain to short. That would move Elly to center. I think as currently constructed, you can't because everyone likes Gavin. I like Gavin Lux.
Yeah.
At second base, having Gavin at second, Matt at short, Elly in center, I'm just not quite there yet with that group. I'd rather just have Lux in a utility role. McClain at second, Elly at short. But yes, if they can land a solid second baseman, through a trade either as well, with McClain moving to short, I think that's something to look at.
Okay. There you go. Something they will look at, so we'll see. I thought too many fans, and I understand that I just covered the team, so bear with me. Too many fans were, the Reds blew it again. The Reds were terrible in the postseason again. I think them getting to the playoffs was the win in a lot of ways. Facing that Dodgers team, I know the bullpen's not great. They weren't going to beat that Dodgers team. It's just my opinion. They weren't. To me, they reached their ceiling by making it to the playoffs, but that's just my opinion. So let me ask you this. What's the number one reason why the Reds can get back to the playoffs next year and win a playoff series next year?
Well, the Reds need stars. I don't think they're going to get Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
There are 3 guys that I've been thinking a lot about. That's McClain, that's Noelvi Marte, and that's Sal Stewart. All 3 of those guys, we've seen the ability for them to be guys who are good enough to be top half of the order hitters on very good teams,
Yep.
Including whatever the Reds are. So McClain was their best player in 23. This is just really a thing in baseball. It takes a full year to come back from a shoulder surgery like that. He wasn't just getting there the way that he needed to until kind of the end of the season. He started to feel better. I think it's fair to expect McClain to take a big step. Marte just started figuring it out, and he has unbelievable raw talent.
Yep.
I think it's fair to expect him to take another big step, and we haven't even really seen Sal Stewart yet. So if those three guys surround Ellie and Friedel and who are at the top, and then you got your Steers and your Luxes and your Stevensons, like that's something right there. That's something you can work with.
It's such a weapon not having to figure out what the heck is going to happen with Noelvi Marte.
Yeah.
He is your right fielder. We know what he could be. Like, all those things are such benefits for this team.
Even I also think he is the only guy right now who I can promise you, when healthy, will start the most games for the Reds at a specific position.
Yeah.
I guess him and Stevenson, but catcher's its own thing.
Yep.
Like, Noelvi's going to be in right.
Yep.
Cabrian Hayes has to improve as a hitter. We talked about Ellie and McClain and their roles. Steer will move around. Stewart will move around. Friedel, could they get a center fielder? Could Friedel move to left?
Right.
But Marte, stick that guy in right.
Known commodities can be a superpower for a baseball team, especially this Reds team and how they're constructed. Okay, last two for the Gold Rush, and we rush slow because we have a lot to say, right? Let's go back to the Bengals. What single player benefits the most from Joe Flacco?
Say Chase Brown, when you look at that handoff stuff. And then, we saw the Browns literally spend an entire game against the Bengals throwing quick passes to, I believe that was Sampson in week one, like, Flacco to Sampson, the Montana to Rice of our time. But no, I think Flacco is looking to check the ball down.
Yeah.
I think that's going to help Chase Brown.
And maybe for your fantasy teams, Jamar Chase once or twice on a deep ball. We'll see. I don't know. Last one, and this is a tough one. What's the feeling you get on this Bengals-Packers game? You don't have to give me a score, and it's okay if it's the Bengals, like not winning this game, but just give me a feel and a vibe for how this goes.
What this game is about is next week.
Okay.
Like, can you do enough in Green Bay to feel pretty good going into a short week against the team you're chasing, the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football? Can you get Flacco, not to call it his preseason because these are real games that they need to win, and 2-4 really doesn't sound good, but 3-4 coming off a win against the team you're chasing, that's something momentum heading into the mini bye. So can you give yourself more confidence heading into the Steelers game? You certainly would do that with a win, but can you do that anyway?
I agree 100%. If you think about the last 3 weeks and how bad it looked, if it looks competitive, if you see promise, even at 2-4 coming out of it, you think about the division, hosting the Steelers, getting to 3-4. Bears and Jets are coming along as well in the coming weeks at home. I think that sets up well for this team. I agree. Okay. Last thing, as always, it is time for the Gold Nugget. Charlie, what's something interesting you got stewing, or an interesting story from the past week or so?
Justin Riscotti, the Bengals passing game coordinator.
100%.
So you look at the coaches, you got Zach, you got Dan Pitcher. Next up, you got Riscotti. We don't say his name a lot, but he's a very important guy. Great understanding of meshing downfield, passing, identity, that kind of stuff with protection. Like, he's very good at that. That's why the Bengals have him in a very prominent role. The 2006 Atlantic 10, the hottest rivalry in the FCS, was between James Madison and Delaware. That would be Justin Riscotti and Joe Flacco.
Wow.
2 Walter Payton FCS Offensive Player of the Year award candidates, hot names. You could have had that debate, out in the Atlantic 10 schoolyards, playgrounds in 2006. You would have been having that conversation. Riscotti beat him. Flacco went on to really take that next step in 2007. They reunite in 2019. Riscotti's first job in the NFL is the Denver Broncos quality control coach.
Yeah.
Flacco's their quarterback. Flacco remembered that he had lost to Riscotti, and Riscotti certainly remembered. And then, they reunite again here this week, and Riscotti is, a big part of the Bengals' plan of getting Flacco up to speed and ready to go.
Did you talk to Riscotti?
I did.
A story coming on that?
It's already up.
It's already up because I haven't seen it yet. Okay. Will you tell everyone right now where to find that story and how to find you?
This little place called Fox 19.
Okay,
Fox 19's website. You can see the Charlie's Chalkboard tab. It's all up there.
And on X, your handle is?
Charlie G with 2 underscores.
Okay, Charlie G. Okay. I just want to say, I wish there was a cooking show, like maybe a morning cooking show called Biscotti with Riscotti.
Ooh.
And if he wants to, I can maybe help pitch that to him.
Sure, he seems down.
He seems like he'd be down. Okay, good. I am very much looking forward to reading that story. That is great stuff. Okay, he is Charlie Goldsmith. I love filling in for Joe Danneman. As always, glad you joined us. Watching or listening, as always, come check us out on the Fox 19 podcast platforms. Wherever you listen to your podcast, thanks for joining us.